Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. If you have not met me yet, my name is Heather.
I'm Levi.
And we have been homesteading on about 10 acres for 6 years at this point. I started our homestead here. He was deployed. So it's our homestead. It's been our homestead the whole time. But I raised our first meat chickens and grew our first garden here in 2019. And a lot has changed since then. It's been insane.
It is very different here.
Yeah, and we have been documenting our homestead life on YouTube for about 5 years. It was March of 2020 that I first turned on the camera. Now there's not a lot of those videos left. I've privated a lot of them, but I do have a year in review video that I've made every year that we've been on YouTube. I'll put the playlist down below if you're interested in catching up on all that. I love looking back at those videos. It's really cool to see how things have changed. So before we get into the questions, I wanted to tell you guys that there are still quite a few of these 22-ounce steins left on our website. They are ready to ship, so this is not a pre-order. They're ready to send out. It's $40. That includes the domestic shipping inside the US, so I'll link these down below too. So with that, I have selected 20 questions. We did not get to all of them that were asked on our question call, but if I don't go through your question here, I tried to answer it in text on the question call, so hopefully everybody's questions get answered regardless.
What is your why? Why do you do all that you do? Life can feel so crazy at times. I just want to tap out and choose easier, but we don't seem to give in and just keep going and learning more each year. Have you guys ever felt like that?
Not yet. I haven't felt like that yet, but again, we haven't been homesteading for a super long time, and we have been doing a lot of new things every year, so there's a lot of kind of things to look forward to and a lot of excitement.
And we've also gotten rid of a lot of old things, like we don't do meat chickens anymore, so it's not like we're adding new and keeping what's always been there and just piling on and on and on.
Yeah, we have shifted focus a little bit, not a ton. We started trying to grow some of the things that we were buying at the grocery store and realized that there are alternatives that we love much better. We actually cooked a chicken. What was it, last night I made chicken? And the kids, I could hear them talking. They're like, this is good, but rabbit's way better. So I haven't experienced that yet, but I know that that's real life. I know that that's a thing that happens. And what is your why? So I was thinking about this because this is one of the first questions that came in. And really, I don't know what I'd do otherwise. When you have young children, that really consumes a lot of your day, just doing the mom thing and cleaning up after kids. Our youngest is 7. He's going to be 8 in December, so he's 7.5. And I don't know, I feel like if I wasn't doing all the things that I was doing, I'd probably be on social media constantly. That is probably what I would be doing. And so it's just a more fulfilling life overall. I get a lot of gratification from putting a meal down that we grew ourselves. And honestly, a lot of it tastes better. We struggle now with like store-bought bread.
Yep.
And sometimes, and this isn't because people don't know how to cook or anything, but sometimes when we have meals made from like store-bought dairy and things, the flavor is just seriously underwhelming. There's a lot to be said for homegrown, homemade food that I think we're just kind of like ruined for it now. The convenience doesn't have an appeal because it just doesn't taste as good.
Would you consider trying full-grown Nubians or mini Nubians for dairy?
Everybody wants me to do Nubians. They see the La Manchas and they're like, excuse me, what about a Nubian? Nubians, they're fine. They're good goats. My good friend Megan, she has Nubians and mini Nubians. And I purchased a couple of her bucks this spring, mostly because I oversold on the bucks that were born here. There's a question coming later about how many goats and rabbits that we like to raise on our farm every year. And I had sold too many. And so when I purchased that little mini Nubian, I asked her to keep them intact. So if I wanted to, I could put a couple of them over some of my does before butchering them this fall. And so I'm excited to kind of dabble into it just a tiny bit, but it's not something that's going to be long term. I really want to stick with the mini La Manchas. That's really where my heart is. So the answer is no on Nubians, and it's not because they're bad goats. They're not. I just like the La Manchas more. It's literally just the ears. I just like the look of them.
Weird football heads.
They look like dinosaurs.
Is Levi still juggling work on and the homestead? If so, how do you as a couple manage with one working at home and one outside the home with raising kids, and then make your marriage a priority too?
This is one that I told him. This is another one that was one of the first questions asked. And I said, Levi, we have this question. What do you think? Levi is still working. He works like 4 days one week and 3 days the next week. Yeah. So it's not a lot. It's probably still full time because they're long days.
That's not 40 hours a week.
Okay. Well, it feels like full time because it's like 2 hours of driving all the time. So he's away from the farm a lot, but he's also here a lot. And one of the reasons that we wanted to move out to the country was the commute. I know in previous places that we've lived just ruined his whole day.
The traffic on the commute, not the commute itself, is just sitting in stop and go traffic. And where we live now, the worst traffic I come to for most of my drive home typically is either getting stuck behind a harvester, a combine, or a horse and buggy.
I knew that's where you were going with it because that's real life. And it's nice. It's a nice kind of slow down. You're just like, oh, this is really nice. This is what I wanted. And so even when you come home from work, you don't seem stressed. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems to be a lot better than it was.
It is also, the work itself is more, there's more gratification in the work, and there's less stress in the work. So,
well, for those that don't know, you used to be in the military, and now where are you working?
I was in the Army for 8.5 years, and then now I work for my little brother for the family business doing remodel work.
Well, you've always told me you like work where you can step back and actually see what you did.
There is job gratification. Yeah. At the end of the day, I can look back, and whether it's the demo phase or the rebuild phase, I can see what progress happened as opposed to a mountain of paperwork that ends the day the same height that it started the day. It's the job that I was meant for.
Yeah, and it reflects in the home. And this all ties back to him. When he's here, no matter if it's a work day or not a work day. And I think having a nice relaxing job helps with that transition. You don't have this like heaviness that needs to be shed.
Pent up frustration. Yeah.
And we've experienced that before, and we don't want that.
Nope.
We didn't want that. And so I think that's a big deal, being able to be present and be here and do the thing despite having to work off the home. You get to where you get excited to work on things like the barn after working all day. So
because I enjoy what I do.
Yeah. How do you, outside the home and raising kids, and then make your marriage a priority? This is the part, like the end of the question about raising the kids and making the marriage a priority. This is the one I struggled trying to pinpoint because I feel like we're such a team in general that it just comes with it. It doesn't, not that we don't do things intentionally to work on our marriage, but working together here feels like that.
Yeah. So like, I'll start with raising the kids. 3 or 4 years ago, we started where I would do the bedtime routine with the kids. That just sort of eliminates the question of who's gonna get the kids in bed or whatever, and there's a routine, and it's just expected that I do the bedtime routine with the kids. And then when the kids go to bed, it's typically anywhere between 8:30 and 9 when I'm done with the kids, and then we don't actually go to sleep until, I don't know, 10:30-ish, approximately, typically.
Just a couple hours there for sure. It's just us.
And so there's time, sit down, watch a movie, which doesn't happen super often, but one of Dave Ramsey's guys is a counselor, I guess, and he's put out a whole bunch of decks of cards called Cards for Humans or Questions for Humans. Yeah. And there's couples decks, and I even got the dating deck, and it's just each card has a different question that you can talk through, and we've gone through a handful of those decks, just, a few cards at a time each night, and that's something intentional. And more often than watching a movie, we'll watch just random whatever video on YouTube, and to me, that's it's still a screen, and there's still like some disconnect, but I think it's more, I don't know, intimate and personal because it's on a tiny little phone screen. We typically don't cast it up to the TV, and so it's just more, it seems more intentional to me.
Well, and it's usually some kind of commentary thing that we're having discussion and things with it too. So I don't know. It's just the working on the marriage just seems like part of life. Yeah. So it was hard for me to nail down. But oof, we're getting them.
Should I leave it on?
Yeah, I would. See this guy? Is it in there? Can you even see it? The fly zapper is the best. You can leave it on, and so they just gravitate right to it, but you can't leave them in it or it stinks like burning hair.
Yeah, it's nasty.
But it works really well.
Approximately how many goats and rabbits do you butcher for meat each year?
Okay, so this is the question. I like to raise at least 5 or 6 goats every year. And I feel like that number could go up, but it depends if you can get a deer or not.
Yeah.
But we don't know that until hunting season comes along. The last couple years, right? 2 years you haven't gotten any, but we were able to get, a couple of our friends moved and they didn't want to move their whole freezer of meat. So we got quite a bit of ground venison that was given to us. So that's really nice and helps kind of make up for the goat that we don't have. But I prefer the taste of goat over literally anything else. The deer are great and the cuts are big. We can get like the steak cuts and things. But yeah, 5 or 6 goats and probably, I'm gonna say about 60 rabbits would be the best. And I think we maybe are just going to get that. We're just gonna squeak by with that this year. We've eaten a lot less rabbit than we normally do because it's been kind of a hard year, but I've just kept back some does and kind of revamping my breeding program, and hopefully this coming year will be better with that. Because I wouldn't mind eating rabbit a little bit more. Our family the kids are getting bigger, and so they're wanting more meat at dinner time. So instead of 1 rabbit feeding the whole family, now it's about 1.5 rabbits. So we gotta think about that too.
What are your favorite garden and homestead channels with content that is less scripted or edited? Nothing against those creators, I just prefer more realistic content, which can be hard to find with YouTube's algorithm.
Yeah, on the note of the algorithm, it can be so annoying. For me, they'd recommend the same things over and over and over and over. And what you can do is, next to a video, there's a little 3-dot menu. You can click on it and say, I'm not interested. And even if it's a channel that you like, it doesn't affect that. It'll just stop recommending that one video to you over and over. And that can help kind of reset the algorithm and teach it that you want something different. I don't see those channels come into my For You page at all anymore. The ones that are just a little bit intense, you know what I mean? So that's a suggestion that I have. But also, a couple that I really like to watch, some of them have stopped making YouTube videos, which is really sad. But I really like Roots and Refuge when she's able to post. I know that Jeremiah hurt his arm and she's taking care of him, and they're having another kind of hard summer. So Roots and Refuge is one, but also Homesteading with the Zimmermans is a really good one. Ruth Ann is ex-Mennonite. I don't know if they're technically considered themselves ex-Mennonites. I don't know if she's like detached from the world or that world fully, but they bring a lot of that kind of life and all that into their channel, and it's really nice to see kind of the old ways of doing things, and that is not heavily edited or anything like that. It's really nice. I also really like, there's a couple real small channels. There's High Song Grows. Mary has goats and gardens in Arizona, and I love her content. A lot of kind of scraping by and doing with what you have on that channel. And there is also Darling and Grit. Homestead is a really good one. They're putting their homestead together in Washington and have sheep and ducks and bunnies. And so check them out.
Is it possible to keep only 2 to 3 milking goats? Can they be happy or thrive in such a small group? I have a local Nigerian dwarf breeder. Would that be a good choice for milk with a high enough fat content to make butter and cheese?
Yeah, Nigerian dwarves have the highest butter fat. So if that's what you're looking for, that's a perfect goat. Now, not every goat is going to be a high producer. There are Nigerian dwarves that only put out like half a cup each milking, and that's not a goat that I would want. So try to get some of the higher production lines, and I think you'll be good to go with making cheese and butter and all that. Now, with livestock, no matter if it's goats or not, you have to think about 2 is 1 and 1 is none. I would not just have 2, because anything can happen and 1 can die, and then you only have 1 goat, and that's never a good thing. A good minimum is 3. And so then you have that wiggle room where if something happens, you still at least have 2, and you can replace that third and always kind of work with that. But they'll be fine in a small herd. A lot of my goats, I've got a big herd, they tend to hang out in little small cliques. And so I started with
4.
So it was Rory and her 2 babies and Pepper.
Yep.
And that was fine. They were happy. Rory with just her babies would have been happy. So if you can find a doe for sale with her babies, that's perfect.
Who are you breeding to your mini Nubian buck, and are you doing any pure Nigerian pairings this fall?
All of the ones who just bred in May, those are all Nigerians, except for Margie and Farrell. Margie is my mini Ober, and she breeds Farrell for fall babies, but the other does that I have that are Nigies, they are bred back to Nigies, and they'll be kidding in fall time. But I don't have any Nigerians that are going to be bred in the fall to kid in springtime. Those are my La Manchas and mini La Manchas at that time. And I'm still putting together my breeding plan. For now, I think my mini Nubian buckling with the moon spots, he does not have a name yet. And the reason I'm kind of stuck on that is I know he's not hanging around for long. I am going to just use him and then put him in the freezer. I want to register him so I can register his kids. But I don't want to use up one of my good names on a goat that's going straight into the freezer, basically. But at least with Elpis is the plan, and maybe with some more goats, just to kind of sort of ensure that I get a doe out of him. Although it's not a big pressing matter, because I know that my friend Megan with the mini Nubians, she's probably going to have some unwanted bucklings next year, and I can always try again then. So it's kind of a fun prospect to be able to use a buck and then put him in the freezer just to kind of have fun with genetics.
Science experiment.
Yeah.
Do you currently have or plan to set up a rainwater catchment system for the garden? If you currently use one, how do you deter algae growth?
We have 3 IBC totes that are rainwater catchers. I haven't actually used them to water the garden. Not that I wouldn't, but I haven't done it yet. I've only actually had to water the garden, the front garden, once this season. I was gonna water it today. I decided not to because it looks like we're getting quite a bit of rain this week. I do have a pump that I can put in the catchment that has a filter. So I haven't actually tried to deter algae at all. There's not a lot of algae growing in them, surprisingly. That one's been set up for like 3 years on the front of the house. There is some algae, but it's not like when I turn the spigot, tons of algae just gloops out or anything.
Yeah, right now they're just gravity fed.
Yeah, and it hasn't been a problem, and I think that the filter on the pump will help, but I don't have experience with that. It might mess me up later, but so far it hasn't mattered for the way that we're doing things at this exact moment. We got another fly. It's music to my ears.
Would you consider doing videos on how to make your own chapstick or hand lotions, for instance, out of medicinal garden plants?
So I have one video where I made a salve with some of our beeswax and some lavender, and I'll link that below so you can see that. But honestly, my favorite kind of body product is tallow, and that's not plants at all. That's goat fat. I use the goat tallow. It's my favorite thing. Above everything else that I have tried, tallow and my skin get along the best, and so that's what I'm going to continue to use. And I do have a video on the tallow balm too. I'll also put that below.
I think you've mentioned that your land is quite wet. Do you have issues with scald, shelly hoof, and so on? If so, what approach do you take to dealing with it? What's your general hoof care regime?
I've only seen a hoof scald once, and it was on my first set of goats, and it was right after we got them. And at that time, our barn, the people who lived here beforehand did a great job cleaning literally everything. The house was super clean, the barn was super clean, and they had dug out kind of low in the barn, and so when it rains, the water kind of seeps in underneath the wall of the barn, and it's wet, and it was wet then. And so I dealt with it then, and what I did was I just put down pallets so the goats could get up off of the wet ground until they wasted enough hay and enough manure built up to where there was a pack in there. Right now the pack in there is like probably like this, at least. Maybe higher in some spots.
It's probably twice that in some spots.
Yeah, in some spots it's quite high where the hay feeder and things is. And that has been what has saved our goats' feet, I think, that pack. And I'm not digging it down lower than there's like a baseboard in there. Mm-hmm. I need it to be a pack in there so that we don't have hoof problems. I have not had hoof problems. I trim hooves twice a month, or no, every 2 months is what I meant. I trim hooves every 2 months. And sometimes my milkers get done more frequently just because I have them up on the stand, but hoof trimming every 2 months is all I've had to do. Now, if you have animals that have white feet, have the white hoof horn on it, feral has white feet, and those hooves are very brittle. They're very, very soft, and they can be a lot harder to deal with. Feral does get some like separation of his hoof wall, but it hasn't caused him major problems. But that is something where if you've got a bunch of white-footed animals and you have foot problems, maybe try to get some of different genetics with the harder hoof, like the black hooves, or like even the striped hooves are better.
With the recent barn addition in Buck Barn, are you planning to add any more buildings to the farm?
Are we?
A whole house.
Eventually.
And a shop.
Yep, and more recently, what are we gonna do?
Our next big project like that is we're gonna build a sort of like a detached deck with a roof, and I want to screen it in for a picnic area where we can put the grill and the smoker and like a small just hose hookup wash sink, just a little outdoor kitchen picnic area.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And eventually our barn roof for the green barn needs redoing, and that's, Levi said, that's essentially a brand new build, because with that probably the front of the barn, which is that wood, will be replaced. I'm
going to be reconfiguring the shape of that barn roof because it only drops, I don't remember what it was, 4 inches over 28 feet. Mm-hmm. It is not nearly enough pitch to properly shed water or snow.
Yeah.
And I want to essentially rotate it so there's a peak that would be seen from the front of the barn, and one side would shed down onto that extension. But because of that, the walls are going to have to be redone on the 2 sides that the peak interfaces, and it's a whole thing. It's going to be a lot.
I'm sort of wondering if that's going to have to wait till next year.
Yeah.
As far as budgets go. Because
it's going to be a big one.
I know, because metal is expensive.
Since you now have Chloe, would you ever consider having any more hobby animals?
Like, yes and no. I don't love the idea of just a hobby farm because it's expensive. Pigs eat very little. No. Pigs can survive on very little. Pigs will eat a ton. They can consume the least amount and convert it to just calories and body mass really efficiently. And so a pet pig makes more sense than something like a pet goat, to be honest. And a pet rabbit makes a lot of sense because they also have very minimal needs. So we have a couple retired rabbits that are just kind of hanging out. I do have Chloe, who's our pet pig that we got from our friend who is moving, and expressly asked me, Heather, can you take Chloe? Because I don't want Chloe to go in anyone's freezer. And I said, yes, I'll take Chloe. And so that's like the stipulation. And I don't really plan on keeping too much more. I do have some plans to retire some goats here that I don't want them to leave. Christine, one of my La Manchas, the chocolate La Mancha, she's technically retired. When it comes down to it, though, I will say I would rather not bury Christine. If Christine gets to the point where she's losing quality of life, Christine will go in the freezer, ultimately. And to be fair, the same could be said of Chloe. Mm-hmm. If she's at her end of life like that, and rather than bury her, putting her in the freezer. I know that would be okay with our friends. I know it. They just don't want her to be a freezer pig and not live out her full lifetime, which with pigs it's a long time. It's like 15 years.
It's pretty crazy.
15 to 18 years. So yes, but the freezer still is absolutely an option rather than burying all that meat. Because even an older animal, most of the time, ground meat is an option.
How do you keep your rabbits from overheating in the summer?
So I've gone through a few different things. I don't necessarily love the idea of absolutely needing to go outside every 2 hours with new like frozen water bottles. I know a lot of people do that, but that adds on to the workload every day, and little things like that add up. So what I try to do is really just provide a lot of airflow. And that's what we've done with the new rabbitry that he just put in. We put a big door in there, and I've got a couple fans that really just blow air through there. And we've already gone through a pretty major heat wave. It was like a week of 107, 108 degree feels like temperatures. And the only thing the rabbits had was that door open and a fan.
And shade.
Plenty of water, all that. Oh my goodness. Hey! It's stuck. And so they did great with that. And that's really what I want. I would like all the things to be a little less hands-on so that I have the ability to do other things. And so if that worked for the rabbit, that's what I'm going to continue to do, which is not a lot, but provide them a space that's already pretty well suited to their needs. But there's a lot of different things that you can do to keep rabbits cool. And one of my favorite suggestions that I have not done, but this seems pretty cool, is to put literally a ceramic tile in the cage with them, because it's usually at least a few degrees cooler than the outside air, and they can lay on that. And that's not something that has to be like constantly managed every couple of hours either, because a lot of people work. They don't have the time to just babysit the bunnies and things all day long.
I know you have made shampoo bars, but do you plan to, or do you make regular goat milk soap, even just for personal use?
I have, and I probably showed it before. A lot of stuff like that gets stuck in a vlog. A lot of people ask questions about things that are just stuck in the middle of like a 45-minute vlog. I haven't made soap for us in a really long time. The last time I made soap, I made it for Christmas, and that was a couple Christmases ago. I tried to do a hot process soap. It was a whole mess. A hot mess, literally. It was awful. But most of the time I buy from Blue Cactus Dairy Goats. Yeah, because she'll have like a buy 5 and get free shipping kind of thing, and I'm part of her membership, her patrons, and the patrons get a discount, and so she's got lovely goat's milk soap. But I've thought about bringing that back home too, because I have the ability. I have the tallow and goat's milk and things here, and so yeah, I'll do it again for sure. I actually kind of want to do some charcoal soap for Christmas. Crystal's charcoal bar. We've gone through a lot of their soaps. I like their charcoal bar best. You did too.
Yeah.
So buy that one if you haven't.
I know you have neighbors that have beef cattle.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever considered raising a beef to harvest?
We have considered it, very temporarily.
That is a lot of animal. And initially, probably one of the first things we talked about when we found out that we were going to be getting this property was getting a dairy cow. Mm-hmm. And then that summer, Heather said she was here when I was deployed. She saw the neighbors' cows and realized how big they were, and knew that I still had some time left in the Army. And she said, if you're going to be deployed or out in training, whatever, I need an animal I can boss around. So we decided against any sort of cow just because of their overall size. And then, obviously I'm out now. And the goats are just the all-around best option for us. And I do like the ability to process our own animal, our own meat. The pig I will make an exception for because I enjoy eating pig, but I don't want to go through the process of, curing the bacon and the sausage and all that. So that one we do outsource to a local Amish butcher, but for a cow,
it's a lot.
It is a lot.
Especially to dry age and hang and whatever. There are people that make these like coolers and stuff to do it. That's a lot. That is a lot to manage. We
did at one point look into how to make our own walk-in cooler.
I still kind of want one in the house that we built.
Yeah, when we build it would be really nice.
So, but that's not to like hang a beef in. Right. To be honest, and I kind of touched on this earlier, I don't prefer the flavor of beef. I just don't. I don't know how you feel. I guess it depends on the cut.
I just like eating.
He likes food, period. Anything. Especially meat. So good. I just don't. I'm very underwhelmed by beef. I'm very underwhelmed by the beef fat. I do not prefer beef tallow. Beef and goat tallow are different.
Yeah.
They've got a very different flavor. I just love goat meat. So it works out. Oh, and also our neighbors, they raise beef, but not for themselves. They said that it's cheaper for them to raise it up to 6 months old, sell it to the feedlot, and then buy their own beef at Walmart. They said it's cheaper, and that's what they do. So just food for thought.
She had told me the last time they raised a cow for them, like for their own personal consumption, was a long time ago, like 15 years ago, and that was the first time I think she was saying that was the first time it became less cost effective to raise their own than just to buy it at the store.
Because of just changes in price over time?
I
the
guess.
Subsidy? I don't know. I have no idea.
It just wasn't worth their time and
how
effort.
It works. Yeah. But they raise beautiful cows and they sell them all.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a good resource for buying goat meat in order to try it?
I think so, but I don't know your area. Around here, it's the ethnic market.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We have a few different Asian markets, and there are a couple of either African or Caribbean restaurants or markets around. You know, if we didn't raise goat and we wanted to try it, we'd be able to access. I would imagine you can find it online. I would imagine it's very costly.
It is, and I'll say, I have been told by people who have tried dairy goat meat and meat goat meat that dairy goat meat is way better. And I think a lot of the raising comes out in the flavor. And I don't know how a goat would taste if it wasn't castrated. And a lot of people like that flavor. A lot of cultures prefer their meat just to be intact and not altered at all. And so that might be something that's encountered with some of this freezer meat. It might not taste good. I don't know. Everything that we've butchered here has either been castrated or was a female. And it's all been wonderful.
My uncle did over 20 years in the Army, most of it in Special Forces, and spent a lot of time overseas. And I had invited him over one time and said something about preparing goat, and he said, "No, I will never eat goat again." So
same thing with our friend who gave us all the deer meat.
Yeah.
He doesn't like goat either, just because he had it overseas.
Yep.
I think it ruined him.
I have not had goat overseas, but
yes, you did. You had it in Poland, but it was in a curry, so all you tasted was curry.
No, that was in Colorado.
Was that in Colorado?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so you haven't had goat overseas.
No.
Okay.
But just given how mild and good the goat that we raise is, I know that what they had probably did not taste good. To at least to our American sensibilities.
Now, we say it tastes mild, but there are people that don't like it. Yeah. Megan doesn't like it. She's fine with it if it's smoked.
Yeah. And
they like their pasture beef. So we just went to 4th of July event, and I brought some of our goat's cheese there, the Colby. And some people who have never had goat cheese anything, they tasted it, and I was like, "Good, tell me, does it taste like a goat?" And they're like, "What does a goat taste like?" I was like a barn? Does it taste like a barn to you? I don't know. Does it taste like a horse smells? And they're like, "No, it tastes like cheese." That made me feel really good, because we've been in it so long that I don't know that our taste buds aren't just like totally altered, and I don't taste anything, but apparently our goat cheese tastes like normal cheese, which is good.
Interesting, the picture on the Q&A is of hogs, because I watched your parasite cleanse journey. How do you get around the parasite problem, not to mention the closeness to our DNA? I ask because I've heard it's impossible to cook pork hot enough or long enough to kill the parasites.
I looked at this, and I can't find a source that says that you can't cook the parasites out of pork.
Yeah, I feel like if that was the case, no restaurant would be legally able to sell pork. I don't know.
It's 145 degree temp, and then you let it rest for 3 minutes, and that kills anything that could be in the meat. Now, not every meat has muscle-borne parasites. Pork can. And I'm not saying my pork doesn't have it or hasn't had it. How do you get around the parasite problem? You don't. And that I tried to make that the point of the video, but I don't think it really came across. More than pigs, more than goats, more than cats, dogs, you'll get worms from people. And I want to make that so clear that I don't think the animals that were around is a huge problem. Because if I had worms for years and didn't know it, how many people was I in contact with that got it from me, you know? Because it happens. Yeah. There's a ton of people in the comment section on that video talking about how you get it at a restaurant, you can get it from the buggy cart at the grocery store, touching any kind of door handle, going to anyone's house, potluck, whatever.
Fresh produce at the grocery store.
Fresh produce. There's just a bunch of different ways. Now, there are some worms that animals can't pass to us, but if you're in contact with other humans, there's a ton of stuff that we can pass back and forth to each other. And so I feel very at peace with the whole situation. I am so relieved to have figured out what was wrong with me. It doesn't make me want to change a blessed thing, except my awareness that I am probably going to be perpetually exposed to parasites, and my whole family is, and all of you guys are too. And just having the awareness to take care of it and know how to deal with it and live with this, because we don't have a choice. It's just, I think everybody has parasites. I really do. And it's almost humbling in a way to think about that.
Here in America are like one of the oddball nations out, and I don't know, it's surprising how many nations it's just normal standard protocol to deworm every year, every 6 months, whatever, and it's not just in underdeveloped or third world nations. It's like, would you say Australia and like a lot of developed nations?
Absolutely.
And we're the odd ones out that are in denial. Absolutely,
yeah, for sure. Some people were saying, oh, we don't have hookworm in the United States. It's only if you like poop outside or whatever. I don't know. I have a septic system with a leach field. I kind of poop outside.
Like it winds up out there.
Right. And so, anyways, tangent, but I don't really worry about it. That's the answer. I don't worry about it.
If we have a World War III, would your husband have to return to the military? And if so, how will that affect your homestead?
So that came up on our Discord server when we were talking with some members about that. And there's a couple things, because number one, I don't think we're in danger of that. I really don't. I think everything is going to be fine. But we can entertain the idea. He's not going to be the first to be called.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was medically separated, which is like a check mark on the con side of the list or whatever for me being, I forget what it's called when you get called back in.
Isn't it called a recall?
It might be. So that would be a ding against me getting recalled. I'm 35, which is, getting geriatric for the military. And like Heather said, I personally don't think we're at major risk for that happening. And by the time, if it does happen, that it would happen, I would genuinely be too old to get recalled.
Yeah, too old, too broken.
Yeah.
But also they'll call in the National Guard first. And then they'll call in those who are healthy and fit that got out within the last 5 years, kind of thing. And so we'll see these waves of people being called in and have time to prepare if that was a thing. But let's say that it did happen. What would happen to our homestead? Because he could be gone because of a car accident in like the blink of an eye. It doesn't have to be World War III. Something like a car accident is way more likely. And so these are things that I've thought about. And really the way that our homestead is, I would have to pare down some things, but it runs pretty smoothly as it is right now, because I can manage the goats. I do manage the gardens myself most of the time, and the food preservation and all that. Of course things would be hard. The YouTube channel would probably take a back seat. Like the weakest link has to go when you're all hands on deck with just yourself and some young children, but we'd be fine.
Yeah, I think
if you were called back to the military, we'd be physically fine. I would be a basket case.
I think the biggest physical adjustment would just be potentially needing to call a plumber or an electrician. Just in the last couple months, we had an exterior electrical outlet that went out, and because of what I do for a living, I was able to trace it down, fix it, and move on. Was it 2 weeks ago, our youngest came to us and told me that he accidentally kicked a hole in the wall in his bedroom. His bed sits on the wall, and on the other side of that wall is the faucet side of the shower. One of the supply lines had cracked and had this micro leak in it, so it wet the drywall and softened it. I was able to repair the plumbing, and eventually we'll get to properly repairing the drywall. But these are all things that I'm physically capable and knowledgeable on how to do.
My
that if I wasn't
broke.
Yeah, the lawnmower needed a new muffler,
broke.
The car needed battery and alternator, and just all these things that I'm able to do that if I wasn't here, we'd be having to pay someone else to do.
Yeah. People in the military do it all the time. They get short notice orders all the time. So having been in it before, it would severely surprise me if you happen to get called in. But again, that's something that I would not sign up to do again, but we've done it before.
I mean, perfect example. I got a call Tuesday or Wednesday night, I think it was a Tuesday night several years ago, from my supervisor, and he said basically, hey, I'm not supposed to be telling you this, but you have a family and I know it's going to affect you guys, but there's a chance on Thursday we're leaving for an undetermined amount of time. And I really appreciated that heads up. However, didn't make it any less stressful.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be okay. I promise.
I see people on YouTube and in various other social media outlets that post videos of their goats inside the house wearing diapers and running around and playing and all this crazy stuff. Is that even possible or realistic?
Temporarily. I don't think it's sustainable long term. I don't. Goats are not meant to live inside.
No.
They're not. I've done it before. When I was trying to bottle feed Winnie was inside. She peed all over the place. I didn't put a diaper on her. I probably didn't want to go get one. But I also, when I had Feral, he was a bottle baby, and we also had this family event to go to. I needed to feed him every so often, so I put diaper on Feral, and he was running around Grandpa's house.
I forgot about that.
Feeding that little baby Feral. If I can find a picture of Feral in his diaper, I will share it. I bet you my sister-in-law has a picture
Guaranteed
of him.
One of my sisters has a picture.
Oh goodness, that big huge goat now. He was so cute. He's still cute. But I think those things they're fun when they're babies, but it's not sustainable long term for anything. Most of the diapered goats do go outside. You can start them out that way. Whatever suits your fancy. I have sold goats to people that put diapers on them and put them in their house before. But I don't know how it ended up. Really, I didn't keep in good contact with all those people, but I do know that one of them at least did goat yoga. He went and did goat yoga with people, which I think is cool. But I don't think that that's something that people really keep up with. If you do, tell us how it works, because I can just see it eating everything, jumping on everything, causing a big problem. I don't know, maybe it would have to be crated like a dog if you leave, so it wouldn't get into trouble.
Yeah.
It sounds like a nightmare to me.
How do you do all that you do? I feel like a lazy bum watching your videos. I wonder why I'm not making cheese or bread. Now I think I need a goat, but it's so much work. I'm sure that Levi does tons that we know nothing about, and we only see certain times during the day, but wow.
Yeah, one of the things that happens with us is a divide and conquer. You guys, you hang out with me because I'm the one that has the YouTube channel and does all the things with the YouTube channel, but when I'm off doing something, he's off doing something else that you're not seeing, for sure. Having said that, I'm looking around my kitchen right now. Do y'all want to see it? She's messy. Look at this. This was a busy day. We were outside all day. Look at this. Oh my goodness, that sink is so full.
And overflowing.
And overflowing. I don't keep a super clean house. I think that's got to be part of it. If I wanted to keep a super clean house, I would spend a lot of time cleaning, and that would eat up a lot of other things. And there are seasons where, you know, it's winter time and I have the gumption and time and energy to keep a tidier house. I almost said super tidy house, but that never happened. But I think that's where you see certain things and you're like, I wish I was like that, but you don't usually see what's behind the camera. We just turned you around, and I'm not cleaning this up before I go to bed. This will be something I deal with tomorrow, and you'll also help, of course.
Yeah, it's all prioritizing and just understanding that no matter how good at juggling you are, you're, you know, gonna drop a ball here and there.
Yeah.
I guess just deciding which ones you're willing to or okay with dropping periodically or from time to time, whatever, and not stressing over it and understanding that it will be addressed.
Jess with Roots and Refuge, she says you're juggling a bunch of balls, you just don't drop the glass ones.
Yep, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like some of them are glass, some of them are precious, and they need to be cared for and handled. Other stuff, these dishes, they'll get cleaned and they'll get messed up because we eat a lot from the farm, and what we have a lot of are ingredients, and so we have to cook a lot. I decidedly don't cook lunch. When he's home, he loves to cook lunch. I'm like, you cook lunch. I'm not doing it because I usually will cook breakfast and dinner. Sometimes I have a hand in cooking lunch because I'll make bread. On that note too, though, it took me 3 years to consistently make bread. I did not just start making bread and keep making bread forever. It took, I mean, in some seasons I would pull out the bread machine because that was easier. And in some seasons I bought bread because that was easier. Now it has gotten routine. And that's what I would suggest is pick one thing. And it might take a year or two for it to become routine. And once you can do it without thinking about it, and it doesn't seem like it takes a lot of extra brain power and a lot of effort to do, then you are ready to move on to the next thing. That's what happened to me. I honed in on bread, and I got the hang of bread. And then I honed in on cheese, and now I have the hang of cheese. And that sounds crazy because literally when I first started making cheese, if I was making cheese, it was a whole day production. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I was taking my time. I was rewatching videos. I was stressed out and trying to keep everything super duper crazy. Surgery room clean, operating room clean and stuff. When you're learning, there's a lot of things that take a long time that eventually just become second nature. And that, it just takes time. It takes time and it takes practice. So one thing at a time. And give yourself grace. It does not happen overnight. And I don't know, I'm an enabler. I think everybody needs a goat, so I'm not going to try to talk you out of that. Start there. Get a goat. Or two.
Unless
3.
Unless you live in an HOA, then probably don't.
Well, where were we driving the other day when someone had 90s in their front yard? Where were we? It was this, I expected to see dogs in this little play area with like a slide, and no, it was Nigerian dwarves.
That was
in the front yard.
That was still more rural than neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was on the way to Misty's.
Okay, so yeah, it was definitely in the sticks.
It wasn't the HOA.
No. Okay, so having said that, do not forget that we still have some of these mugs on the website, SageAndStoneHomestead, all spelled out.com. And at the end of all of our Q&As, I like to do a giveaway. So this is actually the stein that this was something we ordered like a blank.
Yes.
It was like a little custom to see what we thought. This is the first one that we ordered. Levi likes our new steins better. So we're going to give this guy away. So in order to enter for this stein, I don't care where you live. I don't care if you live overseas. I will get this to you if you win. But we will be selecting the winner from the comments that talk about what their favorite method of preservation is. Now, this doesn't have to mean that you do this thing. If you think freeze drying is super cool, then choose that. Which is just, what is your favorite way of preserving food, even if you're not the one preserving that food? Okay? And in a week, I will go live and I will choose one of the comments with a random comment generator that talks about their favorite preservation method, and I will send this over to you. Beware of scams. It's going to be me and my face on the live stream. showing the winner or picking the winner. And all I'm going to be needing is your address, and we'll talk about that through email. So anyways, I think we're done. We managed it in under an hour, barely.
It's crazy.
We did good, so I'll see you guys again soon.
Bye.
What was that?
I was expecting you to start talking. I forgot we were thumbnailing.
Okay. Were you properly thumbnailing?
No. I don't know, maybe.
Okay, let's try.